You are a moron. Geometric rays are a fundamental part of geometric optics, and Nathan, you are making a claim.
So
You're
what we
claiming that it's
perceive,
not
Rumpus,
possible
is
to
what I
touch the
said,
sun.
isn't it?
Another
That
brain
is a
soaking.
claim, you moron.
So who's touched the
Check
sun?
Master B.
So who's
Nathan.
touched the sun?
No, it
Time out,
doesn't
you
need
came on
to
calling
someone have
somebody a
touched it.
moron, then
Let me
you
get
be
it straight.
for that.
My claim is that nobody's touched the sun. I ask who's touched the sun, and your answer is nobody needs to touch it. Right, so if nobody's touched it, it is by definition intangible then.
Not tangible. You claimed it was intangible, which is
But nobody needs to touch it to prove it is tangible, according to you, you double-speaking fundy.
mountaintop. There are no doubt some mountaintops in.
That's not the sun, though, is it? Let's make a false comparison with something we know is physical, like a mountaintop.
Does that make
That
it
we can
intangible,
touch?
Nathan? Because
Sorry, touching it would make it tangible. Who's touched the sun? Well, we don't need to, right?
you keep on over talking me. I can't over. You keep on over talking me.
Suck my balls. How's it taste? I asked who's touched the sun. Your response, heard clearly for the audience, nobody needs to touch it. How do my balls taste?
Make a mountaintop that's not.
Mountaintop's not the sun. So I don't give a shit about your intangible or tangible comparison with something I know is tangible, like a mountaintop. Because the sun, I ask who's touched it, you say doesn't need to be touched. End of your time in this argument.
If there's a mountaintop.
Yeah, get angry for me too. Because that's what's going to happen every time you come here. You're going to get annoyed with me as I absolutely annihilate your claim by simply asking you who's touched the sun and you telling me nobody needs to touch it.
Tangible. If there is a mountaintop somewhere.
That's not the sun, though, is it? I mean, we're talking about the sun. I know you need to take it to something we know is tangible to make your comparison, but I asked who's touched the sun. Plenty of people have touched mountaintops, so I'm not going to ask that about that now, am I? But I've asked who's touched the sun, and you've already told us. Nobody needs to.
Mountaintop that has not yet been touched. Does that make it intangible?
Sorry, has the sun been touched? Who's touched it?
No, we'll do my question first, because we can understand the.
Oh, well, I asked my question first, and you answered nobody needs to touch it. We heard you, but maybe we could just brush past that. No, I'll stick here indefinitely while you fundy mute every single word that I say, and don't respond to it because you're talking through it. So nobody's touched it. Nobody's verified its tangibility then.
Been touched. Does that make it intangible?
Sorry, asking me about something else that hasn't been touched isn't talking about the sun and whether or not that's been touched now, is it? That's just another false comparison you're trying to draw.
But if it can be touched, Nathan.
If it can be touched, so we're going to assume it's tangible. Yeah, that's not going to fly either, dickhead.
You're assuming it's not tangible.
So you're assuming that it is because you're the one making a claim about a distance being measurable to it. Me, on the other hand, I don't need to claim tangibility of the sun because I make no claims about it and it serves no purpose. You, on the other hand, claim it is tangible. And I'm saying, who's touched it? And you're saying, well, we don't need to claim it's tangible. If it's tangible, begging the question.
You are a moron.
And now you're on to the ad homs. I'm a moron, am I? Well, all I asked was whether or not someone had touched it, and you told me it doesn't need to be touched, ending your argument, annihilating your position, destroying your claim of physicality.
If I haven't touched something.
If you haven't, then it's intangible. If it's the sun, because nobody's touched it. Of course, you could make a comparison to something else.
Isn't it? So you are a moron.
So it's back to the ad homs. No, the sun's intangible, and you're claiming physicality and distance based on assumptions of our values for Venus and Earth. So it doesn't really matter what you say, no one's touching it. And when I ask who has, you say it doesn't matter.
You are a stupid moron.
Right, your time over. Bye-bye. Yeah, I don't mind that when it descends into non-stop ad homs, you can just get lost. Bye-bye. See you later. I've won. Who's touched it? We don't need to touch it. Oh, really? Look up intangible. And then tell me that you don't need to actually verify its tangibility when you're assuming all these things about it. Yeah, you do. But you can call me a moron non-stop while I teabag you, because that'll come over really well to the audience. They'll think you've won. No, they won't. They'll know that you telling me it doesn't need to be touched and no one's touched it won't really back your argument of tangibility when you're assuming our values to get assumed distances, to give you scalars. Yeah, that's not going to fly, mate.